A rookie sailor left a valve unsecured during a silent maintenance drill. 40 minutes later, a pressure imbalance almost triggered an automatic reactor safety lockout. The USS Thresher was 700 feet below the surface of the Bering Sea when it happened. Inside the reactor bay, alarms didn't scream. They pulsed, quiet, urgent tones meant to preserve the silence protocol while signaling danger. That made them worse. Chief Engineer Roland took 3 seconds to confirm the data, then 2 more to realize which valve it was. Who ran inspection? On circuit 7G, he asked, already pulling up the log. A young voice from the corner. That was me, sir. Seaman Ruiz, fresh from A school, bright, polite, and apparently careless. Roland didn't yell. He didn't need to. He tapped the screen hard enough for the crew to hear it over the ambient hum. You missed a lock seal. That triggered a balance issue. That balance issue could have triggered a reactor alert. You know what happens during a silent drill when an automatic alert goes off? Ruiz swallowed. Protocol break. Detection risk. No, Roland said. We lose our invisibility, and once we lose that, we're not a sub anymore. We're a target. 20 minutes later, Commander Max Granger had the full incident report in hand. He read it once, then called the control room to a halt. All stations, drill suspended. Full crew reset. Reactor operations to standby. Seaman Ruiz, report 2. Control immediately. Granger stood at the center of the room as the doors opened. Ruiz entered, nervous but upright. Sir, he said, voice flat but steady. You know what you did? Granger asked. Yes, sir. I failed to confirm a valve. Lock. I ran the checklist from memory. I skipped verification. Granger paused. You skipped verification. Yes, sir. Granger turned to Executive Officer Lyle. XO, initiate protocol redaction. Reset Ruiz's training status. Strip active role until re-evaluation complete. Yes, sir. Ruiz nodded. Understood, sir. But Granger wasn't finished. He walked forward slowly, speaking low enough for only a few nearby crew to hear. You don't get to make memory mistakes in this job, Ruiz, because we don't get to bury people. We don't get funerals. You make one wrong move at 700 feet, and there is no surface. There is no return. Ruiz stiffened. I understand, sir. Do you? I do now. Granger stared at him a moment longer, then turned away. Dismissed. Ruiz left the room, his face red, jaw set. The rest of the crew remained quiet. There was no smugness, no mockery. Just the collective understanding that one of their own had nearly made them visible. And being visible out here meant being dead. The drill was reinstated 2 hours later, but the mood had changed. Trust in a submarine was a currency. And Ruiz was broke. Down in auxiliary systems, Ruiz was reassigned to cable tension calibration. Monotonous, manual work beneath the acoustic floorboards. Chief Roland didn't speak to him beyond the necessary orders. Neither did the others. But then something strange happened. 3 hours into Ruiz's reassignment, the sonar room flagged a faint acoustic echo. Weak, repeating, not random. Commander, the sonar chief reported, we've got a non-natural rhythm, deep bounce pattern, could be a seismic sensor or a deep-sea drone. Granger narrowed his eyes. Bearing 237. Depth about 900 feet. Too deep to be civilian. Silent running? They're trying. Granger turned to Lyle. They hear us? Unlikely. We're below acoustic profile. But if they're scanning this wide, they're not fishing. Granger nodded once. Passive mode. Prep masking sweep. Let's find out who's listening. Back below, Ruiz worked silently. Until he heard it. A faint click. Then another. Not mechanical. Not internal. He paused. Checked the acoustic floor grid. Then checked the external cable harness, coated in sound-absorbent insulation. But there, at the joint, one of the vibration seals had started to slip. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to create trace echoes. He tapped his headset. Chief Roland, I have a possible acoustic bleed on cable loop 6B. Minimal, but measurable. There was silence on the other end. Then, confirmed, stand by. 10 minutes later, Roland arrived, inspected, then nodded slowly. You were right. I'll reseal it, Ruiz said. You do that. He paused. Good catch. For the first time in hours, Ruiz heard something he hadn't expected. Respect, up. Above, Granger received the update. He said nothing, but made a note in the log. Bleed caught by Seaman Ruiz. Immediate correction prevented possible ping echo. No further anomalies detected. The crew never clapped, never cheered. But the yow. Silence felt different now. The ocean doesn't scream when it's angry. It hums. 3 hours after Ruiz caught the vibration bleed, the USS Thresher remained in silent glide mode, drifting along the edge of the Aleutian Trench. On sonar, the sea was clean. Too clean. Commander, said Petty Officer Tran at the console, I've got faint displacement returns, directional movement, bearing 182. Commander Granger stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Classify. Not commercial. Low frequency, tight turn radius. Could be an unmanned deep-sea surveillance platform. Or a sub shadowing us, said XO Lyle. Granger nodded. No pings? None, sir. But they're tracking. Slowly. Quietly. Down in auxiliary systems, Ruiz was rerouting battery. Feeds when the soft red lighting flickered. Signaling internal silence mode extended. No status reports. No casual comms. The Thresher had slipped into full stealth again. He looked over his shoulder. Alone. And yet, not unwatched. 2 decks above, Chief Roland was reading the full incident report. For the second time in 12 hours, Seaman Ruiz's name had appeared in a context other than failure. Not good, not bad, just present. That was rare for someone who had just lost the crew's trust. He stood and headed down. In sonar, Tran's voice dropped to a whisper. Commander, new contact. Confirm propulsion. Direct trail. They're locking into our wake. Granger didn't blink. How close? 0.7 nautical miles. Steady pace, no aggression. They're testing our nerves. They're learning our shape, Lyle added. By shadowing this long, they can model our propulsion signature, our heat output. Eventually, they won't need to find us. They'll know us. Granger's voice dropped. I want all hands on acoustic lockout. Start thermal dampening cycle. Reduce reactor bleed by 20%. Lyle blinked. We'll lose mobility. Granger gave a tight nod. We won't need it unless they fire. The order went out. Lights dimmed another level. Life support switched to passive rotation. The Thresher became something else entirely, not just silent, but invisible. Below deck, Ruiz felt the change immediately. The air thickened, fans stopped. The deck seemed heavier, tighter, like the ocean was climbing in. He stepped into a secondary junction and froze. That noise, he'd heard it before, barely, but it was there, a tick, one every 6 or 7 seconds. Not mechanical, organic. His pulse quickened. He crouched and pressed his ear to the insulation layer above the ballast regulator. Tick, tick, tick. He checked pressure, seals, all normal. Then he remembered the sonar simulations in BASIC. What enemy? Sonar mapping pulses sound like when they bleed through the hull at high depth. He activated his manual notepad. No comms allowed. He wrote, sonar pulse detected. Faint, rhythmic. Echo timing approx. 6.5 sec, possible signal mapping. Then, without hesitating, he clipped the note to the designated silent courier line and pulled the tab. A red light blinked. 2 decks above, Chief Roland saw it flash. He opened the capsule. Read it once, then twice, then sprinted. Commander, he hissed as he burst into the control room. Message from auxiliary. Ruiz detected signal bleed. 6-second pulses, likely passive mapping sonar. Granger turned instantly. Verify. Tran checked. Confirmed. Intermittent ping returns matching timing pattern. They're brushing us, Lyle growled. They're not trying to find us. They're learning us. Granger's face was unreadable. Time to blind them. He turned to weapons. Prep noisemaker deployment. 4 bursts, pattern spread, reverse vector, then full dive. We drop into the trench. Ma'am, that's uncharted, Lyle warned. Debris, rock, no mapped floor. I'm aware, but it's the only place we can go where they can't. Moments later, the USS Thresher launched 4 acoustic countermeasures, high-pitched sonar burst pods designed to mimic submarine surfaces. They screamed into the water like ghosts, and the enemy signal vanished. Granger gave one last order. Drop. To 950 feet. Angle negative 20 degrees. All crew brace. We disappear now. As the sub angled downward, Ruiz stood in the corridor holding onto a pipe, teeth clenched. No one came to thank him. No one patted his back. But somewhere in that steel hallway, the whisper of trust came back. Just a little. The trench was a gamble. As the USS Thresher descended past 950 feet, everything creaked. Hull plates moaned softly. Pipes pulsed under pressure. Somewhere near the reactor bay, a vent coughed a slow, metallic rattle. Nothing dangerous, but enough to make every sailor clench. Depth holding at 973 feet, reported Petty Officer Tran, still descending. Commander Granger stood motionless, staring at the sonar display. What's our thermal cover? Optimal, sir. Cold bottom layer. Excellent masking. Enemy contact. Tran shook his head. Nothing. We've either lost them or they think we've imploded. Let them believe it. The silence was heavier than pressure. Every crew member knew that 1,000 feet wasn't just numbers. It was flirting with design limits. The Thresher wasn't supposed to cruise this deep. One weak weld, one stress fracture. That's all it would take. Down in auxiliary, Ruiz moved. Carefully. His job was basic. Monitor pressure in secondary battery vents. But his mind wasn't on the gauges. It was on instinct. Something felt off. He kept thinking about the sonar pulses he'd heard earlier, not the rhythm, but the angle. At the time, he'd assumed the source was ahead. But as the Thresher dove, a strange pattern had echoed down the hull, bouncing from below. He leaned into the wall again, listened, and there it was, a pop. Then silence, then again, faint, but real. He tapped a notation pad and scribbled, possible sub-level sonar reflection from below, beneath trench. Not confirmed, but repeating. He clipped the note and sent it up the silent courier line. Then he did something unexpected. He grabbed his emergency headset, unpowered but still wired, and opened the low-level external vibration sensor. In the silence, a new shape emerged. Soft, slow-moving, but deep and close. In the control room, Chief Rowland read Ruiz's note. At first he hesitated. Then the report from sonar came in at the same time. Commander, Tran called. We're picking up bounce back from below us. Something moving. Granger frowned. Terrain? Negative. Terrain doesn't move in 12-second intervals. Granger turned toward weapons. Status on countermeasures? 3 left. 1 loaded. Granger's jaw tensed. They followed us under. Then the ping, sharp, precise, from directly beneath. Contact. Active sonar lock, shouted Tran. Enemy vessel is at 1,003 feet, directly below us. They've got us cold. Before Granger could respond, the second ping came, shorter, tighter. Lyle froze. They've finished scanning. They're prepping a firing solution. Do not arm torpedoes, Granger said immediately. We move. Now. He turned to helm. Emergency ascent protocol. Full ballast purge. Pitch angle 30 degrees. Sir, I know what it is. Do it. At that moment, Seaman Ruiz's voice crackled through the emergency comm. Commander, recommend venting secondary battery exhaust aft. Create heat bloom. Draw their acoustic lock. There was a pause in the room. Granger glanced at Rowland. He's right, Roland confirmed. The battery exhaust is hot and messy. If we vent now, we can drop a thermal shadow. Do it, Granger ordered. Ruiz, release manual locks. Down in the battery bay, Ruiz opened the primary valves and triggered the vent sequence. A muffled whoosh surged from the stern. From below, the enemy sub would now see a new image, a rising submarine, and a boiling cloud of heat and pressure below it. Torpedoes were fired. 2, from a depth Ruiz never even imagined, but both locked onto the hotter, slower bloom. Boom. The decoy worked. The shockwave hit like a train. The Thresher rocked hard, to starboard. Lights flickered. Systems blinked. Panels popped open in half the compartments. Sailors were thrown from bunks. But the sub held. They had survived. Inside the control room, Granger gripped the edge of the command console. Blood trickled from his temple. Status? Minor hull flex, Tran reported. All systems intact, no breach, no flooding. Enemy? Gone. Vanished, no second ping. We lost them. Granger exhaled, slowly, then turned to Roland. Get me Ruiz. Minutes later, Ruiz stood at attention in the control room, soot on his uniform, jaw tight. Granger faced him directly. You recognized the angle of the pulse. You heard the change in pattern, and you offered a solution in seconds. Yes, sir. You saved this boat. No, sir. The boat saved itself. I just finally started listening to it. Granger nodded once. Your suspension from active systems is lifted, effective immediately. Ruiz stood tall, taller than ever. Thank you, sir. No, Granger said. Don't thank me. Just keep listening. The sea had gone quiet again. 45 minutes after the emergency ascent, the USS Thresher leveled off at 400 feet. Lights were restored to standard brightness. Reactor output stabilized. Internal comms resumed, but voices remained low, careful. No one forgot what just happened. In the command log, Commander Granger entered the final assessment himself. Evasion successful. No damage. Enemy contact neutralized. Crew performance exceptional. Notable actions by Seaman Ruiz instrumental. Granger stared at the entry for a moment before closing the panel. Then he walked, past sonar, past engineering, all the way to auxiliary systems. He found Ruiz seated near the pressure junctions, legs outstretched, his uniform marked by heat stains and smoke. He was staring straight ahead, not lost, just still. Granger approached quietly. Resting? He asked. Ruiz jumped slightly, then stood. No, sir. You should be. You've earned it. Ruiz swallowed. I almost didn't. Granger looked around the dim corridor, then back to the young sailor. When I started out, Granger said, I watched a man make a mistake like yours. He stripped a cooling lock, panicked, and lied to cover it up. Nobody found out. But 6 months later, that same line failed under stress. We lost a crewman, just one. He tapped the bulkhead with 2 fingers. Out here, one is too many. Ruiz nodded, his voice quieter. I never meant to be reckless. You were, but that's not what defines you anymore. He handed Ruiz a folded slip of paper. The sailor took it with cautious fingers, opened it. Advanced qualification track, systems and sonar ops, candidate approved. You've got work to do, Granger said. More eyes will be on you now. Some won't. Forget your mistake, but they will learn to trust what you do next. Ruiz blinked. Do you trust me now, sir? Granger didn't smile. He just said, I trust that you've learned how costly silence can be and how powerful it becomes when you respect it. Then, he turned and walked away. On the bridge, Lieutenant Lyle stood at the viewport, watching the gray surface waves blur under the periscope lens. Sir, he said as Granger entered, we'll reach the handover point in 2 hours. No new signals. Looks like we're in the clear. Good. He looked over the room. Calm, stable. Then he said, loud enough for the team to hear, let's finish this patrol like we started it. Professionally, quietly, and with 0 mistakes. No one clapped, no one nodded. But every man and woman in that control room sat straighter, because they knew discipline wasn't something you said, it was something you carried. Below, Ruiz climbed into the sonar bay to observe a shift he wasn't officially required to join. He sat beside the tech at the console, scanning waves that no longer held danger, just data. The ocean was deep, but so was redemption. In the depths of the sea, mistakes don't echo, they explode. One unsecured valve, one skipped checklist, that's all it takes. But real discipline isn't just about never failing. It's about what you do after the failure. Seaman Ruiz learned that lesson the hard way. But he didn't walk away. He stayed. He listened. And in the end, he saved 134 lives. If you were commander, Granger, would you have trusted Ruiz again? Or played it safe and benched him for good? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe leadership is about more than authority, if it's about listening, trusting, and growing, subscribe to Authority Watch and hit the bell so you never miss another story from the depths.